If everything you were taught about human history begins too late, what if the real story starts thousands of years earlier? Not with cavemen, not with primitive tribes, but with a world that already understood the sky, the earth, and stone in ways we still struggle to explain. Because scattered across the planet, on different continents, separated by oceans, are ruins, maps, myths, and technologies that don't fit our timeline. And the deeper we look, the harder it becomes to believe they're coincidences. Official history says civilization began around 6,000 years ago. But what if that date is only when civilization restarted? What if something advanced existed before the Ice Age and was almost completely erased? This isn't a theory pulled from fantasy, it's a pattern, one repeated across archaeology, geology, and ancient memory. Let's begin with a site that wasn't supposed to exist: Göbekli Tepe. Hidden beneath the soil of modern Turkey, this monumental complex is over 11,500 years old. Older than agriculture, older than writing, older than the wheel. Yet it contains massive stone pillars weighing up to 20 tons, carved with intricate symbols, animals, and abstract designs. This was not the work of nomads struggling to survive. This was coordinated construction, planned engineering, symbolic architecture, and most disturbing of all, Göbekli Tepe was intentionally buried, not destroyed by nature, not abandoned, carefully covered as if someone wanted it preserved or hidden. Why would a supposedly primitive culture build one of the oldest stone monuments on Earth, only to bury it? Now here's where things get uncomfortable. Göbekli Tepe is not alone. Across the world, we find megalithic structures that appear suddenly, with no clear developmental steps leading up to them. In South America, Pumapunku displays stone blocks cut with machine-like precision, angles so exact modern tools struggle to replicate them. In Egypt, the Great Pyramid aligns with Earth's cardinal directions more accurately than many modern buildings. In Lebanon, Baalbek's foundation stones weigh over 1,000 tons each, stones that even today would be nearly impossible to move. Different continents, different cultures, same impossible precision. Mainstream explanations tell us these civilizations developed independently. But here's the problem. They all share the same anomalies: advanced stone cutting, astronomical alignment, sacred geometry, global mythological memory of a lost golden age. And none of them should exist that early. Now let's talk about something even more dangerous to the timeline: ancient maps. The Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513, shows the coastline of Antarctica, ice-free. Geologists tell us Antarctica has been buried under ice for at least 6,000 years, possibly much longer. So who mapped it? Not with satellites, not with airplanes, but with surveying knowledge that implies an advanced understanding of the planet. The map itself states it was copied from much older source maps, lost maps from a lost time. And Piri Reis isn't alone. Other ancient maps show coastlines with impossible accuracy, long before modern navigation. These are not guesses, they're measurements, which raises an unsettling question: who was mapping the Earth before the Ice Age? Now let's look at myth, because myth is often dismissed too quickly. Nearly every ancient civilization tells the same story: a great flood, a catastrophic reset, a world destroyed by water and ice. Sumerians called it the time before the flood. Egyptians called it Zep Tepi, the first time. Hindu texts describe advanced ages that ended in destruction. Plato spoke of Atlantis, an advanced civilization that vanished beneath the sea. Different cultures, same memory, and geology confirms something extraordinary. Around 12,800 years ago, the Earth experienced a sudden climate shock. Ice sheets melted rapidly, sea levels rose over 120 meters, entire coastlines disappeared. If a global civilization existed near the coasts, as most advanced societies do, it would now be underwater, hidden, erased, forgotten, except for fragments. Fragments carved in stone, fragments encoded in myth, fragments buried beneath ice, sand, and ocean. And this is where the story turns dangerous. Because if an advanced civilization existed before the Ice Age, then history didn't begin with us. We inherited the world. And perhaps fragments of forgotten knowledge. Some researchers believe ancient people didn't discover advanced techniques, but remembered them. Stoneworking, astronomy, sacred geometry. Not inventions, but remnants. And that would explain why civilization seems to appear suddenly, already sophisticated, across multiple regions. It wasn't a beginning, it was a recovery. So ask yourself this: why does mainstream history resist this idea so fiercely? Why are anomalous sites called ritual when their engineering makes no sense? Why are ancient maps dismissed instead of investigated? Why does the timeline never move, despite new discoveries pushing it back again and again? Because accepting a lost global civilization changes everything. It means human history is not a straight line. It's a cycle. And we may not be the first advanced society to walk this earth. In the next part, we'll examine underwater ruins, impossible technologies, and the growing evidence that something powerful once existed and was deliberately forgotten. Because the past isn't gone, it's buried. If what you've just seen feels unsettling, that's because it should. Subscribe to Ages Past to continue uncovering the chapters of human history that were never meant to survive, buried beneath oceans, erased by ice, and dismissed as myth. And if this documentary made you question the official story of our past, press the like button. It tells the algorithm this knowledge deserves to be remembered. And share your thoughts below. Do you believe an advanced global civilization existed before the Ice Age? Or are these fragments nothing more than coincidences history can't explain? Because history doesn't vanish, it waits. Let's continue. If a global civilization existed before the Ice Age, it didn't disappear quietly, it ended violently. And the evidence suggests it may have known what was coming. Beneath the oceans, far from where modern archaeology first looked, lie structures that should not be there. Off the coast of Japan, the Yonaguni Monument rests underwater like a sunken city, massive terraces, sharp angles, stairways carved directly into bedrock. Geologists argue, archaeologists hesitate, but no natural process explains symmetry like this. And Yonaguni is not alone. Near India, in the Gulf of Kambat, sonar scans reveal submerged structures stretching for kilometers, dated to over 9,000 years ago. That date matters, because these ruins were already underwater when Egypt was still thousands of years away from the pyramids. Cities drowned. Now consider this. Sea levels at the end of the Ice Age didn't rise slowly, they surged. In some periods, the ocean rose several meters in a single human lifetime. Imagine entire coastal civilizations watching the water advance, year after year, until escape was impossible. And here's where the story turns truly disturbing. Ancient cultures didn't just remember a flood, they remembered teachers. In Sumerian texts, beings known as the Apkallu arrive after the flood to reteach humanity writing, astronomy, mathematics, and law. In Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl appears after a great catastrophe to restore civilization. In Egypt, Thoth brings sacred knowledge from a time before kings. Different names, different lands, same role, not gods demanding worship, teachers restoring lost knowledge. Ask yourself why. If humanity was starting from nothing, why would it need to be retaught? And why does advanced knowledge appear suddenly, fully formed, across the ancient world? The answer many researchers quietly fear is this. The survivors of a lost civilization may have carried fragments of knowledge into the new world. Not enough to rebuild everything, just enough to seed the future. And this may explain something else historians rarely discuss. Why the oldest structures are often the most advanced. The Great Pyramid is more precise than later pyramids. The earlier stonework in Peru is superior to later construction. The first temples often outperform everything built after them. That is not how progress works, unless progress is actually decline, unless knowledge was lost, not gained. Now let's go even deeper. Ancient myths describe a time when humans lived alongside beings with great knowledge, until a disaster reset the world. Some texts describe fire from the sky, others speak of darkness, cold, and endless rain. Some warn of a time when the heavens fell. Modern science has a name for this period, the Younger Dryas. Around 12,800 years ago, Earth experienced a sudden return to near glacial conditions. Temperatures dropped, megafauna vanished, ice sheets surged. Ice civilization, if it existed, would not have survived intact. But here's the chilling part. Evidence suggests this event was triggered by cosmic impact. Fragments of melted rock, nanodiamonds, shock patterns consistent with objects striking Earth. If true, then the Ice Age didn't simply end. It ended in catastrophe. And a global civilization, coastal, interconnected, advanced, would have been wiped out in a matter of generations, leaving only echoes. And echoes are exactly what we find. Sacred geometry embedded in monuments across continents, astronomical alignments tracking cycles far longer than one lifetime, myths that insist knowledge was inherited, not invented. Even today, researchers are discovering structures beneath ice in Greenland and beneath sand in the Sahara, regions that were once fertile, habitable, and possibly home to forgotten cultures. Civilization doesn't start in deserts. Deserts are what remain after something ends, which raises the most uncomfortable question of all. What if history isn't missing a few chapters? What if we're missing an entire volume, one that describes a world that reached heights we barely understand, collapsed under forces it could not control, and left behind warnings disguised as myths? Because ancient stories don't just tell us what happened, they tell us what happens again. Flood, fire, ice, reset. Civilization rises, civilization forgets, civilization falls. And the evidence suggests we are not the first to stand at this point in the cycle. In the next part, we'll examine forbidden artifacts, precision engineering that defies primitive tools, and the growing suspicion that some discoveries are quietly ignored, not because they're wrong, but because they change everything. The past is not dead, it's watching. If this documentary unsettled you, then it did its job. What you've seen are not answers. They are fragments left behind by a world that may have risen long before ours and fell long before we were taught to look. Subscribe to Ages Past, because history is not finished revealing itself. And the deeper you go, the harder it becomes to believe this is humanity's first chapter. Leave a comment with what you think was erased and what you believe was once known. The past is not silent. It is waiting to be remembered.